Any of you planning any trips to Mexico, Canada? Okay. Foreign exchange risk basically means the risk that you're exposed because the value of a US dollar is not constant against other currencies. Example, let's look at, let me see. I mean, we have our sheets, but today I want to see the graph. Let's look at the graph of one value of €1 in US dollars. This is just over a year, about a year ago. Uh, €1 actually bought only 96 US cents, but now it's about 109, 110. So if you actually owed in euros, what happened to your obligations in terms of US dollars? Did it go up or down the last year or so? Suppose you owed 1 million euros. 1 year ago, how much was that? Assuming the exchange rate was about 0.96. $906,000. Let's assume that it's 110 now. How much do you owe? 1.1 million US dollars. So your obligations in the currency that you care about went up. That's the foreign exchange risk. It could have been the other way around as well. I mean, risk doesn't mean that the bad thing is going to happen. It's just, it could happen. Uh, you're probably thinking, where is that arising? It's so interesting that even people who have not even heard about Euro or Japan and don't want to know anything about Japan are actually exposed to exchange rate risk due to exchange rate between, let's say, Japanese yen and US dollars. Let's do 5 years. And about 2 years ago, $1 bought you about 104 Japanese yen. Now it buys you about 146 yen. All right. Now let's think about a bicycle producer in Podunk, Kentucky. Okay. This guy doesn't even own a map. He doesn't know where Japan is. He doesn't want to know where Japan is. He probably hates the Japs anyway. And he produces bicycles using just local labor and local materials and sells them in the market. I'm going to argue that this guy is exposed to exchange rate risk between US dollar and Japanese yen. He sells it in US, all of labor is paid in US dollars, all of material is local and paid in US dollars. So how come he's exposed to exchange rate risk? I'm not even talking about multinational or anything like that. He doesn't import, he doesn't export, he doesn't even know what Japanese yen looks like. How do you think he could be exposed to that risk? The risk that he may lose money as the Japanese yen changes value. Yes. hmm No, I mean, you're in US, it buys whatever it buys. I mean, your $100 still buys you maybe 2 cartons of cigarettes or, 10 bottles of Jim Beam, 2 bottles of Angel's Envy, even better. It's still the same thing. We're not talking about inflation or anything like that, but you're kind of in the neighborhood. Anybody else? Can't think about it? Let me open it up. Is that guy the only bicycle producer in the world? No. Who else you know produces bicycles in this example? Don't say Chinese because you're not talking about China. We could have been talking about China, that's fine. And we would have been talking about the risk of the renminbi. Is it possible that Japanese are also producers of bicycle? And do you see them selling bicycles to consumers in the United States? They do. So over the last 2 years, the exchange rate between US dollar and yen went up by roughly 50%. Did that make yen stronger or weaker? Weaker, because value of $1 in yen increased, which necessarily implies value of yen in terms of dollars went down. So if yen is weaker, uh, these guys probably have all their costs in yen. Nico? Hmm. Yeah, it's much cheaper in US dollars now. I mean, that guy's he's selling that bicycle for, let's say, 10,000 yen in Japan. About 2 years ago, that was about $100. Now that 10,000 yen is, if you divide it by 1.5, it's about 65, $66 or so. I mean, you can calculate the exact amount. So suddenly it's about 30, 35% cheaper. Well, competition comes with cheaper bicycles. I don't particularly care whether you know about the Japanese, you like the Japanese or don't like the Japanese. You're gonna have to compete with that. So yen weakening is actually bad for you. Yen strengthening is good for you. Your competition has more expensive products in US dollars. So even somebody completely living a life of a hermit, but he just produces the bicycles, puts them in front of the cave. You know, somebody picks it up, leaves US dollars. That's it. That guy is exposed to what happens to Japanese yen, US dollar exchange rate. And you just, obviously, the rest is even more obvious. If you import things, if you export things, you're exposed to it. If you're a multinational, obviously, you're exposed to it. It's different types of exposures, but you are exposed to it. So even in a economy where there is technically there are even in an industry where there is no foreign trade, you're still exposed to it. Okay, that's one reason why we have a special field. Another one is political risk. Now, if you have a beef with Apple in the United States, what do you do? Or what can you do? Let me put it this way. Let's say they didn't pay you. Come on, we're Americans. I mean, it is the 28th Amendment. Thou shalt sue them, right? You can sue them in U.S. courts. On the other hand, a Japanese firm doesn't pay you. What are you gonna do? I mean, you can technically sue them in Japan, but uh, Japanese in their culture would like to protect each other. So if the judge decides that I'm not gonna let these Gaijin get their money, that's the term for foreigner in Japanese or gaijin. It literally means outsider. Jin means person, guy, outside person. If a similar stuff happened, let's say in Arkansas, You're a Yankee from Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts, they never want to be called a Yankee. Red Sox versus Yankees. You're a Yankee from Massachusetts, and somebody treated you bad in Alabama, okay, or Arkansas. You can go sue them there, and judge probably is gonna protect the local people, but Alabama is not a sovereign state. I can actually bring the entire power of U.S. federal judiciary system on them if I have enough money. I can't do that other than threat of war or other kind of stuff to Japan. They are a sovereign state. U.S. Supreme Court has no say on what goes on in a Japanese court. That's why international finance is kind of a different nature.